Welcome to Father and Son. Welcome, Tom.
Morning, Judd.
Well, it was Brownlow night last night and Juddy got home again. I had $50 each way and won 1,000. And it's the same quinella as last year, which nobody's picked up in the press. Last year Applaud came first, Judd second. This year Judd won and Applaud came second. Great result.
It certainly was, although the fact that the top three, because of course the poor old Dane Swan, who everybody thought was the raging favourite, well, he was the raging favourite, he came third. But it does say, unless you play in the middle of the grounds, where the game is pretty much decided these days, you don't catch the umpire's attention. No. Better even than Judd winning was the look on both Eddie Maguire and Dane Swan's faces, because I mean, they were not very pleased.
Okay.
Oh no, no.
I didn't see it. I fell asleep.
No,
it's like watching grass grow.
Well, it is. It's very boring. But Eddie Maguire was very upset, and I think
it's good.
But what it also shows, I mean, to be fair, Judd is a brilliant player in a, let's be honest, an average team.
Yeah.
Whereas Swan, I think, for his perspective, is also a brilliant player, but in a very good team at the moment. Hence, the Collingwood votes were spread more widely.
Yeah, the same can be said about Applaud as well.
Yeah, although Applaud is so good, he still manages.
No, but Selwood got 20 votes.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
All right, let's talk about something more serious. We've seen some issues come on the table. Now, first of all, Oakeshot's trying to have his cake and eat it. He wants to be the Speaker and have a deliberative vote, which is against the constitution of the country. And the Liberals rightly turned him down yesterday. So I don't know if we're ever going to get a Speaker. It looks like it'll be Labor.
Well, it's one of those things that if we don't have a Speaker, we don't have Parliament. Now, at the moment, Harry Jenkins, who is the Labor Speaker, would stay in the role. And Oakeshott, I think, we're already seeing the limitations of doing deals with independents, because he clearly doesn't understand what the Speaker is supposed to do. You know, the Speaker sort of gives up being an active member of Parliament in return for controlling Parliament, but they do not get a deliberative vote. They get a casting vote, and that is only exercised when Parliament's tired. Given the makeup of Parliament, to be honest, the Speaker probably will have a few casting votes. But this has been pointed out to him, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to be Speaker now. So I don't think he really thought it through.
No, but he felt he got a deal with both the Coalition and Labor that he might get a deliberative vote. But I mean, I don't think anybody realised you can't do that.
No, they can't. So look, there's a lot of reforms they could have, and they could look at the UK Parliament on which ours is based. Now, the Speaker there is actually voted on by the entire House of Parliament, and it's quite a prestigious office. They probably have more control over the Parliament than what our Speaker has. But it's important to understand that the UK Parliament has 650 members,
yes,
whereas ours only has 150. And when it's hung like this, you know, one vote is important. So, look, they'll appoint someone. My pick is probably Harry Jenkins.
Which means the vote will be 75 voting with the Labor Party and 74 voting with the Coalition.
Yeah, and it would only take one person to change sides, e.g. Tony Windsor, to suddenly make it all very.
If somebody gets sick, you know, they have had pairing systems for a long time, but they don't have to have them. It's only
it's a convention. It's not a rule.
No.
There's an interesting parallel in the early '90s when John Major, who was the British Prime Minister he of course took over from Thatcher and lasted right through to '97. But early to mid '90s, the Conservatives had a very narrow parliamentary majority, and they had to rely upon Democratic Unionists from Northern Ireland who didn't often vote in Parliament. They had to sort of ferry them over and make sure they did vote to get their legislative program through, and eventually that fell apart and he lost to Tony Blair in 1997. So there are parallels. Pairing is an idea, but it doesn't work all the time, and it's certainly not a rule overseas. It's just a convention.
So it's going to be very interesting. Now, the other interesting thing that's happened, Tom, is a lot of subjects have come up because of the influence of the Greens that weren't even discussed in the election. The first one, obviously, was carbon trading, where I was amazed to see the chief executive of BHP come out supporting a carbon tax. I had lunch yesterday with Jerry, our president of the Savage Club, and he couldn't understand why has Cloppers come out on.
Well, there's actually a couple of pretty good reasons. I'll tell you what they are. Now, first is, obviously, carbon tax would hit coal pretty badly, and BHP and Rio are massive exporters of coal, but there's the important word, exporters. Now, the way a carbon tax would work, it's actually hit upon the users of energy, not the creators of energy. And if you export coal, well, the users are in other countries, so an Australian carbon tax wouldn't necessarily hit them.
Well, but you could put it on export.
Oh, you could, but I think he's getting on the front foot of the debate because he's going to argue that it shouldn't be on exporters. The second reason is, and this is a more far-fetched one, but it fits in with things that you've argued, nuclear power. Now, BHP is possibly the world's largest producer of uranium. There may be some bigger ones in the former Soviet Union. But if Kloppers is right and we have a carbon tax and coal use is gradually reduced, then one of the alternatives is, of course, nuclear power. And BHP, because of its ownership of the Olympic Dam mine in South Australia, which it bought from the old Western Mining Corporation, would potentially do very well out of it. So there's two reasons you might be supporting it.
But even if we went to nuclear power here, the amount of uranium we would use would be infinitesimal versus what BHP exports now.
It would be small. It would be small. But some people say that if an energy consumptionally or consumer-dense country like Australia, where people use a lot of energy, took the lead on a carbon tax, it might push other worlds to do the same thing. So look, it was an interesting move. As Gillard said, it wasn't talked about before the election. In fact, Labor specifically put it off until 2013.
Exactly.
And I think people need to understand, you've also got the state saying they're going to eliminate price caps on electricity prices over the next few years. So for all of you sitting at home tossing up whether to switch an appliance on or off, it is soon definitely going to become a lot more expensive. My tip is that over 5 years, consumer electricity prices will double in this country.
Well, that will have a major impact on Australia's competitiveness if
Absolutely.
others don't lift their electricity prices.
And look, just on the average person, I mean, we spend a lot of time at home, we have big plasma TV screens, we leave our computers on. You know, a carbon tax is designed to do two things. To make people think twice about using electricity, which is going to mean that we have less enjoyment in our lives, and secondly, to make alternative sources of power more competitive, such as wind or solar or whatever. But it will make electricity a lot more expensive.
Now, some other subjects that seem to have come up after the election, which looks to me as though it's influenced by the Greens, you better talk about them because I don't like either subject.
Well, there's gay marriage, which hasn't been spoken about yet, but it's certainly going to come up. I mean, the Greens in love with this sort of thing. Gillard said she was against it, but she's got her new special friends. And of course, euthanasia. Now, that's a vexed topic which comes up for a conscience vote about once every 10 years in the federal parliament. I think the last one was actually in 1993 or 4. Look, it's a difficult one. The Greens are in favour of it. I suspect it's one of those issues that cuts across party lines. I think you'll find...
Yeah, I actually believe in euthanasia if somebody's lost all their marbles or their quality of life is such a point that they can't enjoy it. I think it's quite a good thing.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that your own children, Dad, and I've led the way. I've already got it sorted out for you. But,
thank you very much. I just hope, though, that they don't inflict it on me when I've still got all my faculties. That's what
there's a chance we may do it a bit earlier than what was expected. No, but look, all jokes aside, it's a serious issue. Amsterdam is probably not Amsterdam, Holland is the country we have to look at. There are mixed reports. Some people say it's a good thing. Others say that they reckon there's at least 200 deaths that perhaps shouldn't have occurred. Now, how they work that out, I'm not sure. I suspect we'll be having a conscience vote on euthanasia sometime in the current parliament. And it's not entirely a bad thing. Gay marriage is a different issue. That does...
Head against that.
Well, it does cut across party lines. I can't see the Liberals supporting it. I can't see them supporting even a conscience vote on it. But again, it might be something the Greens push very hard. And wouldn't it be interesting to see what the rural independents think?
Yes, I know.
About gay marriage? Well, I would suspect not. But
all right, we'll leave it there, Tom. Just to finish on a happy note, Old Carey won the VAFA amateur title in B grade for the first time, so we go to A grade. And most surprisingly, collegians who were hot favourites in A grade got beaten again, and they got beaten by Old Zabs, who won the A grade pennant, and Old Zabs have been in 13 of the last 16 A grade grand finals.
So with Old Carey going up next year, it could be the Baptists versus the Catholics in amateur football here in Melbourne.
Yes, and we play Old Scotch as well and Old Trinity.
Oh, well, all the sectarian divides will come out.
We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Good one.